Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Leo, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of November 2023. I hope you are well. I'm using the Pagan Otherworlds Tarot for you today. Just before we begin, if the reading resonates and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended you can access at the end. Link number 1 in the description box. Link number 2 is to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, over on Circle. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost. Hang out with a truly extraordinary group of people. And yeah, if that sounds like it's something of interest to you, you know what to do with that link. Now, Leo, let's have a look and see what's going on with you. Could I have 3 cards for Leo, please? Right. The first one in your recent past is the Two of Wands. There, it's an Aries card. What about current energy, please, for Leo? We have the Knight of Wands. Okay, more fire, that's Sagittarius energy. And what's coming towards Leo? Wow, okay, 5 of Pentacles. Well, that's cheery. We have the Page of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck, though. So it feels like, honestly, this entire reading is screaming adaptation to me. It's, you know, we've got the energy of Sagittarius right here in the centre that feels to me very much like it's asking you to pivot on something. What that is, I'm not sure. We'll have a look in a second. But this 5 of Pentacles here, it's not a comfortable card, but it does talk about instability, shifts and changes, because it's numbered 5. And the thing about that is, you know, we're taking something in the 4 that we considered to be foundational, so foundational that we were holding on to it. And with the 5, it's like the cracks are starting to show in a particular way of doing something or thinking about something, investing in something. This Page of Pentacles here is a useful counterpoint to the energy, the kind of brittle energy of this here. You know, it's breaking things apart, so things that can be rebuilt in some sort of way. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm using the Time Traveler, what is it? Time Traveler Tarot or something like that, I think, because I seem to have left my Centennial Rider-Waite Smith at the Tarot Conference. I cannot find it anywhere. So let's have a look. Let's see what this 2 of Wands is for Leo, please. Can you get some information about that? Oh, there we go. So we have the Empress. It's Taurus or Libra energy. Please, thank you. Oh, I tried to catch it, but I dropped it. We've got the Hanged Man in reverse appearing there. That's Pisces energy. Tell me about the Knight of Wands, please. Where's that here for Leo? We've got the 3 of Swords. Oof. And the 8 of Swords there. Tell me about the 5 of Pentacles, please. And that's 6 of Wands sideways. We're going to leave that as it is. And one more card for the 5 of Pentacles, please. Why is that here for Leo? Ooh, okay. We've got the Temperance card. Right. 7 of Pentacles is at the bottom of this deck here, and it's very much in alignment with what my feelings were as soon as I pulled the cards here. Now, not necessarily the positive message that we hope, beyond hope, you know, the next month contains for us, but it might not be what you want, Leo, but it might be what you need. Let's put it that way. Because, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. I left 2 tarot decks, including the Tower of the Abyss. I'm fucking wounded about that. At the Tarot Conference, and I came back with London poisoning. So, you know, it doesn't seem like a good trade to me. Anyway, 2 of Wands. Empress and the High Priest, the Hanged Man, sorry, here. The Empress is, as I said, it's Taurus and Libra, but it's actually Venus. And this is how it comes to mean Taurus or Libra, because both of those signs are ruled by Venus. And the Venus retrograde was in your sign. Now, I thought, stupidly perhaps, that meant that the Venus retrograde was going to be something that was kind of gentle, because it was in alignment with our energy, right? But I don't know about you, I found it really, really quite difficult. But the point of it was to reassess what it is that has value. And in some ways, I can see what's happening here, sort of setting the stage for what's going on here. Because in terms of looking at what we, consider to have value, that is the relationships that we invest in, we allow to be part of our life. It's about the activities that we invest in. The Empress is about abundance and expansion and the good things, because there's that Venusian influence over it. We can be talking about money and sensuality and love and all of these sorts of things, right? So anything that you've been investing in this year, I feel like the Venus retrograde in Leo was asking you to look at it and ask whether it still holds the same value to you that it did before. Now, some of you may have found that your relationships broke up at this point. Others of you might have had them rattled a little bit, but then were pleased to find that they actually were still standing by the end of Venus retrograde, right? So there's something there that is of value. There is something that is worth investing in. But this Two of Wands, we often talk about it in terms of being a crossroads energy, but here it feels more like the act of assessing. Right? So there've been a lot of things over your recent past that you have been assessing. And I think for a lot of you, you might well have found that this Hanged Man has probably been the energy that you can most identify with in terms of how the last couple of months have gone for you. Now, I know Venus retrograde we're well clear of that now. It's stationed direct beginning of September or something like that, and then worked its way out of shadow and is now moving forwards and what have you. But this stasis, this submission to the fact that nothing was happening and nothing was going anywhere, I think was a point of frustration for a lot of Leos. That's now shifted too. And the energy that we've got remaining is having assessed, having considered, because the Two of Wands is an internal assessment of what we're going to do, right? Wands are all about activity and doing things. It can be about your creativity and your passion as well. It's a bit sparse, just sat there like that though. The Pagan Otherworlds doesn't have characters in the pip cards at all. What we've got is just a stark representation of the scene. And so the idea of going one way or going another is quite strong here. But we've also kind of got shades of the Four of Wands here, because the way that these have been put, it looks like a doorway. It looks like something that we could choose to go through if we wanted to. It comes down to this reassessment. Is what I've been investing in really right for me? Been upside down, been thinking about it for a while, been absolutely incapable of moving in any direction because all the planets being in retrograde, there were 7 of them at one point, does not allow you to start initiating something new. It doesn't allow you to go forward. It doesn't allow you to make those strong changes that so many of us, I feel at this point, are absolutely hankering for. But it does mean that there are a lot of things in your mind that are now far more clear than they were before. It might not necessarily mean that the road in front of you is any clearer than it was a month ago, because I think for most of us that isn't the case. But certainly when it comes down to those things that have value, that hold value, that we wish to, continue with, we have a better idea of what those are than we did 6 months ago. Now, when we move into your current energy, we've got this Knight of Wands. And as I said, it is Sagittarius energy. It is associated in its more negative light with thoughtlessness and carelessness and things like that. And we should take that into account. I should be sitting here counselling you to make sure that none of the actions that you are taking are knee-jerk reactions that may have repercussions that you don't expect and certainly didn't intend to bring around. But in its more positive light, it is that pivot that I was talking about. And it's so interesting to me that Sagittarius last month found themselves in a state of not being able to pivot. Like, that is somewhat of their superpower. They can go from one thing to another, change direction really, really fast. And there was a question there for them of who they were without that ability to pivot. For you, it's sort of suggesting that the need to pivot is really, really strong. We've got the Three of Swords and the Eight of Swords down here. Now, as I have said a billion times on this channel, no doubt you'll remember if you've been around for any amount of time, the Eight of Swords is an energy that I actually really welcome when it appears in a reading like this, because the implication of the card, the meaning of the card is restriction. It is feeling stuck, feeling trapped, and because it's swords, it's a mental situation. It's not a physical one. We're not tied up and in a shed somewhere, it's a mental restriction. And the corollary of that realization is that the way that we are looking at a particular situation is the thing that is holding us back. It's nothing to do with our circumstances. Now, that might be because we feel like we don't have a choice. And if we feel like we don't have a choice, it's because in some way or another we have screened out the possibilities of escaping from this situation. Yeah, we'll see it here in the Eight of Swords. She is bound here, but she's bound loosely. If she wriggled a little bit, she could get her hands free. And then from there, she could take the blindfold off. She could turn around. She could see the swords. There's something of a state of feeling imperiled here. Like, something awful's going to happen and it's going to get me, and I'm just going to sit here because I can't do anything else. It's quite a powerless position to be in. But the arrival of the Eight of Swords says, that's all in your head. Actually, if you started looking at things differently, and with that Sagittarian energy there's always shades of positivity coming through. Sagittarians are by nature generally quite positive, quite optimistic, quite upbeat about all sorts of things. That rags the shit of certain other signs because they misattribute that to a kind of shallowness often. Right? And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It's asking you to look at your mindset in the here and now. Where do you feel trapped? And to what extent is you feeling trapped here simply because you don't want to take a route that is open and obvious to you because the cost is too much? You could see that here with the Three of Swords. Like, for example, when someone says, I don't have time to do that. Like, that's a nonsense statement. Everybody has time to do everything. What they're actually saying there is, I do not want to compromise on the things that already hold my attention to create space for this. Now, there might be good reasons for that. If you're a parent, sometimes finding time to do anything other than be a parent is really, really hard. But what you're saying is, I am prioritizing my children, and that's perfectly fine. If you're saying, I don't have time to go to the gym, for example, because you work till 5 o'clock and you come home and you're fucking exhausted, and the last thing that you want to do is leave the house again once you come back. Well, that too is legitimate, but it's not actually true. You do have time, you just don't want to spend it doing something that in the short term is going to make you feel even more exhausted than you already are. I want to pull another deck up here. This triple goddess is kind of winking at me a little bit. Tell me about this Three of Swords and the Eight of Swords, please. Thank you. Right, we've got the Five of Pentacles and we've got the Chariot. Now, this is really interesting because not only do we already have the Five of Pentacles over here, it's another card that sort of talks about frustration and frustrated moves and all that sort of thing. We've got the possibility of forward motion, victory and success and all of the things that the Chariot card speaks about. But we've also got someone here who is feeling like their basic needs are not being attended to. And it's always the case that we spend less time thinking about what we actually need and more time thinking about what we should do or we must do or we have to do, you know. And sometimes we can get pretty avoidant about those things. Like, that's hard, that's stressful, I don't want to fucking do it. That can, in time, evolve into I can't do it, or I don't have the time to do it, or something like that. I mean, the reality is that isn't necessarily true. We've got the Queen of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck here, and, you know, again, a beautiful counterpoint to the energy of the Five of Pentacles, because both of these cards talk about positive investment in self. They talk about seeing the value of something and investing in it. I mean, there are other things aside, and we'll get to those in a second. But this is almost like an oblivious state. So when we tie this in with the Eight of Swords, which is also a somewhat oblivious state to the possibility of redemption, the possibility of success, the possibility of fucking movement of any description. And then we've got this Chariot card here. It says that any extent to which you currently feel stuck is a product of your own mind and nothing else. Now, it's quite interesting. I'm going to see how this is echoing around in my own experience at the moment. Everything is about mindset. And this is really important, Leo. Everything is about mindset. And I've talked a lot on this channel about the necessity of kind of interrupting thought patterns that run like a low-level script in your head all the time, right? And most often I've talked about these in terms of kind of getting yourself in between, you know, a situation and your response before your shadow has an opportunity to come out and bite you on the arse, or, you know, bite somebody else on the arse. But also, but it doesn't need to necessarily go that far. Sometimes it's about interrupting the thought patterns that are making us feel like we have, or that we are suffering, or that we are stuck, or we are trapped, or we have no choices about anything. We have no fucking authority over our lives. You know, that our ability to exercise our autonomy has been some way compromised. And start looking at the situation differently. When I said that I felt like this was probably the majority of the Leo experience, or at least for you lot, like, I wasn't joking. There's been a stasis, and it's been deeply fucking uncomfortable, because what we want to do is move, right? What we want to do is get on a horse and adventure around and have good times. Instead, we have been stuck with stuff that makes us feel powerless, stuff that really challenges us. And if you felt much like I have, then it seems like since July, I've just been stuck in fucking Groundhog Day, doing the same shit over and over again, with no movement anywhere. Then the issue is, I think, Leo, in the mind, rather than the reality of the situation, because both the Chariot and the Knight of Wands do speak to movement. The instability is almost the stasis at this point. You know, what Leo energy wants to do is just kind of move, in a comfortable way. I just keep putting those feet forward, 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 and getting somewhere, like some sort of success, right? Leos want success all the time. And it's the last thing that it feels to me like any of you have felt like you're actually receiving at this point. You know, how many of you have found yourself skirting around what is the edge of your tether, being like, I actually can't carry on like this for much longer. I can't do it. And what we're waiting for is some sort of break in the cloud, right? We're waiting for some sort of break in the situation. Excuse me. But if that's not coming, how do you free yourself? I was talking to one of my clients yesterday, and I was telling her about a podcast I listened to a few months ago where the chap said that they had managed to prove that the universe actually turns on and off. It's got a refresh rate. Now that refresh rate is insane. It's something like 22 trillion times a second. But if the universe is turning on and off 22 trillion times a second, that strikes me that that's 22 trillion times a second that you've got to be able to change your reality. Because the only thing that seems to really exist is consciousness. You know, and scientists have spent a long time trying to work out where consciousness is seated, you know, and which particular set of neurons it might be that give rise to consciousness. And they're starting to realize that it's all ass backwards. Consciousness creates matter. The implications of this are enormous. They will blow your mind if you sit and think about it for long enough. And if consciousness creates matter, not the other way around, then we are completely able to change 22 trillion times a second the very nature of our existence. But it has to happen at a consciousness level. If you believe you are trapped, Leo, you are. It's as simple as that. Whether you believe you are or you believe you are not, you are correct. Whether you believe you can or whether you believe you cannot, you are correct. There's something quite profound about the shift in thinking here. And please do not misunderstand me. I am not a fan of the cult of toxic positivity. Sometimes things are really shit and they need addressing. If you're too busy trying to, be the living embodiment of the law of attraction and it's good vibes only and I'm going to just hugely manifest the things that I'm after, you're kind of missing an opportunity to train your brain. You're missing an opportunity to integrate everything that is possibly, the loss of which is the thing that makes you feel so trapped in the first place. Just because things aren't moving at the speed that you would like, it doesn't mean that they're not moving. And just because the one thing that you've been focused on is not proceeding at the rate that you would like it to, it doesn't mean that there aren't 50,000 other things that aren't shifting at the same time. When we talk about Sagittarius, there is often a dimension of faith that is required. And I think a huge part of this is interrupting those thought processes, Leo, that rumble along underneath, that reinforce your feeling of being stuck, being trapped. And you sort of need to flick them on the nose and say, well, why are you here? And yes, this situation's not cool. I'm not really enjoying being in it so much right now. But where are the other directions in which things are moving and I am free? Where is the seat of my control? What am I seeking to control? And what am I not? What should I not be trying to control? Because even if you are stuck in a situation that is making you feel restricted, that's one aspect of your life that is making you feel restricted. And the ability to live in the moment over and over again, which is what the Knight of Wands does really, really well, is there. The question is, are you missing it, Leo? Are you missing it because you are so up in your head about what you do not have at the moment that you're missing all of the other seconds of the day where you could be doing something that really means something? There's so much uncertainty around at the moment, and I think one of my other clients said she felt like sitting in the bathtub and crying, and I was like, I would really struggle at the moment to find an adult in the world who does not feel exactly like that. It seems to be affecting everybody that way. But to what extent is that showing us something that we are trying to hold on to? Because although it's not here on the table, it is implied that the Four of Pentacles is here somewhere. Because we've got the Five of Pentacles twice. We've got movement on from this. You know, the Four of Pentacles is a contracted energy. It's like, this is what I've got and I don't want to let go of it because it's foundational. I have to build on top of this for everything else. And then the Five of Pentacles comes along. I've mentioned before, like Aquarian insight refers to these as the agents of chaos, and she's absolutely fucking spot on with that, because it's about movement, it's about change, it's about shaking things around. Now, if the things that are getting shaken around are the things that we do not want to get shaken around because those are our Four of Pentacles, then we get stuck in this idea that everything is fucking static. That we can't move, that everything's falling around. We're trying to keep all of these, you know, plates spinning in the air. And it's like, well, actually, some of them are supposed to smash on the floor. Some of them are supposed to break. It is your mind that is keeping you stuck here because there are things that are being taken away one after the other. And if you stopped and could stand back for just a second to see what those things are and what that means for you as a soul, but also as a mind that is, you know, down here interpreting reality and deciding what you can do and what you can't do and what you feel and what you don't feel and all those sorts of things. The chaos that is caused is an opportunity. Knight of Wands is nothing if not an opportunist. If you want to be strong, Leo, you have to accept being forged in fire. I'm afraid it is as simple as that. And at the moment, you feel to me like you're in the fire. The solution to the issue is not the fire being taken away. Please don't burn me anymore. I don't like it. Take it away so I can just sit here and vibe happily. The solution is to allow the things that need to be burned off to go. So that that bit of you that remains can be purified by the flame. I've said this a number of times over the last few months, but there's a real back to the drawing board energy about everything. I mean, a lot of the planets that were in retrograde motion a couple of months ago are now moving forward. You know, Pluto is moving forwards. That's a big one. Mercury's out of retrograde. Venus is out of retrograde. Jupiter's in retrograde. You know, it's kind of like backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. But Pluto is moving back over those critical degrees of Capricorn. And Capricorn, Queen of Pentacles, there, is systems, is hierarchies, is things that are built already, the things that already exist. Now, Pluto dancing slowly backwards and forwards over these critical degrees of Capricorn is asking us to break things down. Now, you look out in the world and things are breaking down. There is no shadow of a doubt about that. But in terms of my purpose here, sitting talking to you, now what I'm asking you to do is look at your internal systems. Where do they need to break down? If some of you have felt like you've been at the end of your tether recently, and you've just managed to pull yourself back and you're like, whew, that's just too much, right? That it's a signpost, it's a flag. There's something here that needs to break apart. And that will be different for each of you. I mean, for some of you, it needs to accept the fact that you're not superhuman and there are only so many things that you can do in a fucking day. And maybe some of the things that are a little less important need to be put down. And then we're back to Venus retrograde and the lessons that were learned in Venus retrograde. What is actually important? What is not? Where are we still trying to hold things that we should have put down before? And what is the thought process that is going on there, low-level script all the time, that is reaffirming the fact that we need to hold on to these things that are literally trying to break down in front of us? When we move into November, we've got the Five of Pentacles. That's not a joyful card. You know, it's not a fun card. We can see it here and we see it here. It's a sense of loss. Right? It is the act of loss sometimes. And that can be financial loss. Can be a loss of an ability to be able to give your attention to something, or it can be a fear of that, a fear of the poverty, spiritual poverty, emotional poverty, material poverty. But when you really dig down into this card, what it means to me is about basic needs. And a lot of things that masquerade as basic needs nowadays are anything but. You need shelter, you need food, you need water. And as you go up Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid, then you've got the other stuff. I forget. Beyond shelter, food and water, I forget what comes next. But it's like psychological kind of wellness through connection with other people and all that sort of stuff. What these cards are saying here is there's something that's still not quite right. We see it here in the Seven of Pentacles. Something is not quite right. Something isn't giving you the yield that you thought it would. To what extent are all of your attentions external? Well, as fire signs, right, we tend to be externally facing. We tend to push out rather than take in, like the passive signs do, earth and water. There's a reevaluation going on here because there's something that hasn't been let go that is trying to break away. And it might be that you don't know what that is. Not specifically, but there's a sense that it exists, and that you should be able to resonate with. And there's that Six of Wands, and Six of Wands is a Leo card. It's exactly what we were talking about before. It is the desire for success. It is the want to feel like you're winning at something. It's not really there. It's not reversed though, and that's very important. Because it's not like we're dealing with abject failure. What we are dealing with, though, is the idea that the things that we desire for November are not going to turn out quite the way that we anticipated. And they could be accompanied with a sense of profound loss if we choose to see it that way. All of the energies here in this little pyramid that I've been talking about seem to me to be very important in terms of what is coming up for you and the way that you perceive it. The Six of Wands is a really interesting card just generally, because in order for there to be a victory, there has to have been some sort of corresponding struggle, right? And we see that in the Five of Wands. But it has us also, reevaluating what success actually feels like. Maybe evaluating what the purpose of this particular kind of success is. 10 years ago, the only thing that I would have felt would make me feel successful was having finally got my foot on the rung of my career. Total attachment to outcome, total fixation, nothing else will do. And what I realised when I had to start analysing that as a concept, as it applied to me, was that this wasn't just about what job I did, how much money I earned, that there was a whole heap of things going on underneath there. And as I began to sort through them, I realised just how wild this fixation that I'd had for the longest time had been, and what I was trying to cover up in myself, what voids that existed within myself that I was trying to cover up. It had me questioning what the purpose of success was. I mean, sometimes you can look at that card, and although it's a good card, TM, there is no card in the tarot that is all good or all bad. And you could look at this card and maybe say, you've been thinking too much about what other people consider to be successful. You want to be seen as successful in other people's eyes. You know, we've got the crowd in the background, rather than something that is true to you, Leo. And it might be that when you really dig down into it, what makes you feel successful in a meaningful way, in an emotionally fulfilling way, is miles apart from what you had originally fixated on. I said before, it might not be what you want, but it might be what you need, Leo. Because at this point, I'm not sure that you're able to put your hand on exactly what it is that you need. Because there's something that you're still holding on to. You know, just this Queen of Pentacles here. We've got the Seven of Pentacles sat underneath as well. And for some of you, it might be that you're working too hard. It might be that you're trying to keep too many plates up in the air at the same time. It might be that you're feeling so numb and so restricted, and maybe that's this low-level script that's running within you, that you've almost put your own fire out, because everything feels like a slog, everything feels like a chore. It might well be that the idea of this has been the thing that's been keeping you going for the longest time. But if you really sit with that, what does that actually mean? What is the Six of Wands for you? We're in a period of profound change. And the external world is a reflection of what is going on internally. And everything's kicking off. It's just kicking off everywhere. We can allow that to put us into a place of fear, or we can see it as, you know, the flame of purification that's kind of ripping through the world at the moment. Tensions have to escalate so that things get to a boiling point and break apart, and then we can actually do something to fix these things. The tension that you feel, Leo, and you've been feeling for fucking months, like there's no release valve. There has not been a release valve. The only thing that you've got, I think, has been this kind of numbing, this kind of feeling of hopelessness. And you're just like, well, I do the things that I have to do, but has all the colour gone out of the world in some way for you? You're not abandoning the things that you have to do. You're not abandoning your duties or your responsibilities. But there seems to be a distinct lack of drive and passion here. Now, like I said, the really beautiful counterpoint to all of this is the Page of Pentacles and the Queen of Pentacles. They are the redemptive aspects of this reading, because they point you towards the idea that there is some new type of value, some new type of investment that this situation is pushing you towards. The Page of Pentacles for me is about seeing the value in something that you didn't see before, but it is also a card of initiation. It's not as powerful as an ace, because when an ace comes along, it tends to be something that you've never experienced before. The Page of Pentacles is something that you already have at your disposal. Here's something that you can put your hand on, you know, figuratively or literally. Some sort of stark, important thing. Is it you? I mean, we see this to indicate self-worth a lot. It could be. Is it a value of something that you're working on, some sort of project? Is it the value of you know, your role in terms of how important you are to your kids or something like that? You know, what you're doing for them. You can see this playing out in lots and lots of different ways, but the underlying theme is the same. And so what we've got is a need to almost, like I said, go back to basics and look at where your priorities are. Are they in the right place? Because something is off kilter here. Now, eagle-eyed of you will have noticed that the Tower is sitting behind the Page of Pentacles, and I actually don't feel too horrified about that Tower, because it's another energy of shaking up. Five of Pentacles is the shaking up that needs to happen. The Eight of Swords, in some ways, is indicating a shaking up that needs to happen, but it's a shaking up of the mind, you know. One of the things about the Chariot is, well, you know, it speaks to many things, but it speaks to self-knowledge as much as anything else, and an internal balance. It talks about having your priorities in exactly the place that they need to be so that you can focus on those and move forward. If you've been putting one foot in front of the other and kind of wishing time away, everything will be okay when I get to this point in the future, you're doing it wrong. Because what you've got is now, and now, and now. 22 trillion times a second, if you like, actually. And we've got this Queen of Pentacles here. Now, quite aside from the fact that she represents self-care, nurturing, investment in self, maybe even going over your finances, where can you start to, you know, make those more efficient, because she's very good at that sort of thing, you know. She's asking you to pay attention to what actually requires your investment and what doesn't. Get your priorities straight, and then you can start moving in that direction. Here, there are too many plates in the air. There are too many things going on at once. We've got to take it back to basics and take it down to what is important. And you've got the Temperance card. Now, the Temperance card is a card of healing. It's another Sagittarius card, weirdly enough. The Spirit Keeper's Tarot down here that I use all the time for my own personal readings describes Temperance as a divine higher genius. And what I take from that is that there is an underlying order. There's an underlying intelligence. You know, we talk about this card in terms of divine timing and divine intervention sometimes. Divine guidance. Things aren't going the way that you want them to go because the very nature of the way that you want things to go is the thing that is being analysed here. It's the thing that's being asked to evolve and develop and turn into something new. You don't have what you want, because the thing that you want, which is possibly to be superhuman and just do all the things all the time and do it fucking brilliantly, isn't realistic. There are things that are imbalanced here that need to be brought back into focus. And if that means that you get a little bit single-minded about stuff, Leo, then that's actually what needs to happen. Now, I would also exhort you not to get distracted by things that are going on outside of you at this time. You know, if you have to write a list of the things that are important, right? And I'm not talking about, you know, hoovering the living room or doing the washing or stuff like that, right? You've got house stuff, like the general tidiness of your house. That can all be lumped in together in one thing, right? But all of the other plates that are spinning in the air, you write all of those down. Which of those things are actually important? Which of those things are actually growing and need to grow? And which of those things are just representations of something that you're holding on to that you hadn't even realized that you were? It's just a plate spinning in the air for the sake of the plate spinning in the fucking air. Maybe because other people told you that that plate needed to spin in the air. You know, maybe what the situation needs is just a bit of a fuck you to the idea of what everybody else thinks that you should be doing versus what feels like success to you. There's an underlying purpose behind everything that you're experiencing right now, Leo. It's not the universe just kicking the shit out of you for shits and giggles. It doesn't do that. It's asking you to simplify. Stuff has just got too complicated. There's too much going on. Get disciplined about what is important. And frankly, everything else can go to shit because it isn't important. And if you're trying to treat it like it is when you know that it isn't, this Five of Pentacles is going to keep being present. You know, referred to the Tower there. Feel like the Tower is the changes that you are going to make. It's often the energy of the universe just kind of sweeping through your life and being like, well, you had a chance to sort it out and you didn't, so now I'm going to do it for you, and then you can cope with the aftermath of that. And I don't feel like that's actually the case here for you, Leo. It's really fascinating. The Tower's been stalking me for 2 fucking weeks solid now. Yeah, I had this kind of furtive look. Is today Tower Day? Every day is Tower Day, apparently. Well, you may not have worked out exactly what it is that the universe wants you to kick over at this point. You certainly have a better idea about what it is that you want to retain. But November, I think, is a month of you checking that list and making sure that it is accurate. And so for some of you, that is going to involve interrogating your thought processes about why you think it's important. Because if you found yourself, I'm talking about this low-level running script that's going on in your head, but if you find yourself adhering to a script that everybody else is writing, culturally, societally, even down to your friends and your family and whatnot, if you really sit with that, you may find that it's not nearly as important to you as you thought it was. Pluto in Capricorn. Is asking you, ahead of its transit into Aquarius at sometime in January, is asking you to look at all of your systems, all of your structures, everything. Is it working? Is it taking you where you want to go? Or is it old? Is it stale? Has it been working in the background and you're completely oblivious to it? Because if any of those are true, they need gone. And that might well involve a spectacular change in mindset for you. And that's what the universe wants here. The purification of the flame, you know? It's burning white hot at the moment, Leo, and I'm not sure that it's going to fade over December. I saw some astrologers saying that it's only 1 week in October you need to worry about. The rest of the month's fine. Quiet, sound, nothing going on. No. Well, I thought that was probably not entirely true when I heard it. Because it's the release of tension that's missing. Right? There's an escalation in tension. And there's no release valve. There's no vent. It's not going anywhere. So, the universe may not be piling even more shit on your plate this week, but it's certainly not letting you release vent steam anywhere in any kind of meaningful way that is de-escalating the tension that you feel inside. You're being pushed to a state of discomfort so that you submit to this divine higher genius and go, do you know what, actually, that thing there isn't fucking important. I'm not going to deal with it anymore. And I don't care what people think about it. Whether that's friends or family or society or anything. I mean, none of these structures, societal, cultural, all that kind of thing, are going to stay as they are for much longer. Everything's falling down. Don't pin your colours to something that isn't going to last much longer, Leo. Whatever that means to you. Right, I'm going to go over to the extended now, so you're very welcome to join me over there if you would like to. You can join me on Vimeo, or you can come over to Circle, whichever you prefer. If neither of those feel like there's something that you would like to do, then the takeaway from this is don't expect anything to get easier in November. And I wish I could give you a fucking nicer message than that, but this tension and this pressure is pushing you to something, and it's all in here. And quite frankly, you don't want anything else happening in November, because there's quite enough in here to deal with. There's a lot of sorting out that needs to happen, Leo, and get on it, really. It's the only thing that I have to say about that. Okay, now. No. Alright. And I leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.